Yang berbahagia, Profesor Datuk Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin, and to our respectable panelists, Mr. Al-Hakan Jazuli from University of UIN Araniri, Banda Aceh, Indonesia, Ms. Kushi Nur Yakin Ainal Yakin from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, Mr. Awang Muhammad Shamsul Bazli Bashrin from University Brunei Darussalam, Brunei, and lastly, Ms. Mariam Qureshi from University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign, Illinois, USA. It is such a great pleasure to have all of the speakers with us today in this engaging webinar who will be sharing and deliver their knowledge and prospect in our today's topic, which is International Webinar COVID-19 Crisis, Hear the Students. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, on behalf of the organizer team, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone. We appreciate your time and your kindness to join this webinar. I believe we will learn a lot from today's session and hopefully something fresh to our perspective. Before I proceed, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Shazwin Farugazi, who will be moderating for today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us to the international webinar, COVID-19 Crisis, Hear the Students. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start today's webinar, it will be a great pleasure for us to sing the UKM anthem, Varsity Kita. Without further ado, I would like to call upon Muhammad Amir Haziq to recite the dua.
Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم إنك خلاق العظيم إنك سميع عليم إنك غفور رحيم إنك رب العرش العظيم إنك البر الجواد الكريم الله يا كريم يا رحيم يا فعال لما يريد اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجزام ومن سيء الأسقام ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Mama Amir Hazik, for the reciting the dua. To begin this program, we are pleased to have Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Norazah Muhammad Nordin, Dean of Faculty of Education, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, to deliver the opening ceremony of International Webinar COVID-19 Crisis Hear the Students. Please welcome Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Norazah Muhammad Nordin.
Thank you, Shazwina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to thank Allah for His grace, which has enabled us to gather and attend this morning's program, the International Webinar COVID-19 Crisis. Hear the students. Dear students, yes, we are listening to you. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all panelists and participants to this impactful webinar from many countries, namely, we are from Malaysia, from Indonesia, Brunei, and the United States. The theme for the program is Digital Learning Amidst COVID-19. This theme was chosen to show the students that they can learn effectively through online platforms during the pandemic, despite the challenges and obstacles they face. Essentially, they will be able to adapt to any situation under any circumstances, and they'll be ready to join the job market. We are very fortunate today to have our brilliant panelists from abroad and from local and from abroad to speak on this subject. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Al-Hakan Jazuli from Universiti of UIN, Arairi, Banda Aceh, Indonesia, Miss Kusinur Yakin Ainal Yakin from our Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, and Mr. Awang Muhammad Syam Basil Bushri from Universiti Brunei Salam, and also Miss Marin Qureshi from the University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign, Illinois, United States of America. Welcome to Malaysia virtually. We are very close at heart. The presence of COVID-19 will have the direct long-term impact on education as we must be able to adapt to working and studying online for various reasons and situations, and online education is widely debated. This webinar is also a very good platform to discuss, and I'm very delighted and I'm very proud with our Student Association Pendidik to organize such a very effective webinar to discuss how students could adapt to online learning during this pandemic, how to study effectively, and how I'm sure that the forum today will discuss about the best practices from many countries, so the students can learn from each other's experience. And at the same time, having a very effective network, we can have exchange students or mobility program, although we are not allowed to be physically in those countries. However, we can work out something virtual for us to do the mobility program virtually, and also to have more effective collaborations of academic program internationally. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the program's organizer, the Faculty of Education Student Association Pendidik, for their hard work and a very big commitment in organizing this program, this international webinar. I know that everyone has put in a lot of energy, a lot of effort to make sure that today's webinar runs smoothly and achieve its objective, and also that many will benefit from this program. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Shawal Amran, the advisor for the program, who is also the coordinator for the student affair, and also to Dr. Nur Faradila Muhammad Nasir, the assistant dean for the student affair, for organizing and collaborating and nurturing the student to organize such webinar. Okay, so I wish everyone all the best. Enjoy the webinar. Finally, with the lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I hereby officiate the international webinar COVID-19 crisis here, students. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good day. Enjoy the seminar. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you to our Dean of Faculty of Education, Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin for the opening ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin is a Professor of Learning Technologies and Innovation and currently the Dean of Faculty of Education, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Her research areas include massive online open courses, mobile learning, ICT in lifelong learning, and instructional design in digital learning. The projects that leads include the development of higher education active learning spaces, HEALS, a collaborative research project with the Australian Innovative University Network. The most current project that Professor Datuk Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin leads are Learning Design in the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the 4IR Cross-Creative Learning Innovation for Autism. She is the University Council of Member of Asia-Europe Meeting, ASEM Lifelong Learning Hub, and an active member of ASEM Research Network 1, Development of ICT Skills and Culture of E-Learning in Lifelong Learning. Professor Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin is also the editorial board member of the Internet and Higher Education Journal, the third best Quartile 1 Web of Science journal. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, please watch this video prepared by the organizer team.
Hi, my name is Uwais Firdaus and I'm a 22-year-old student at Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia in teaching English as second language, or widely known as TESOL. To be honest, at first during the beginning of the online learning, I was pretty excited to continue my studies even in such a crisis, especially in a way that I have never experienced before. Also, I thought that I would have a blast throughout the whole online learning, but as time goes on and the COVID cases were unstable and unpredictable, where it caused the online learning to be extended into the next semester, I start to feel demotivated and uninterested in continuing it even further. Rather than skipping the class because of my uninterestedness in online learning, I just forced myself to keep going on. Sometime when I was too bored during class, I will just play arcade games or board games like checkers while listening to lectures to make sure I'm not feeling sleepy. And as someone who was quite active in extracurriculum and loves to join program back in UKM, I really don't want to let the time passes like waterfall doing nothing. So I joined many online programs that were conducted by my college and my faculty because I really don't want to waste my university moment just like that during this whole pandemonium. During online learning, I face many problems, but the one that immensely affects me during the online learning was the lack of technology or tools for online learning. During the first semester of online learning, I was not prepared at all and had to make use of what I had back then, like I have no camera or good microphone or something. And it made my online learning experience kind of suck. So, how do I tackle this problem? Well, luckily I got a scholarship, and rather than spending the scholarship money on lifestyle stuff or just save it, I spent thousands on upgrading my computer and buying peripherals like a new webcam, new microphone, and editing software to make sure my online learning experience are top notch. Even though I said I had fun during online learning, it still feels odd, and I believe I enjoyed conventional learning or face-to-face learning even more than online learning because of its exquisite atmosphere in UKM and the unique interaction with real people. If everything turns out alright, I hope we all could go back to UKM and no longer continue this online learning because I believe privileged students have more advantage than unprivileged students who strive to continue their studies during this hard time. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, to begin the first session, our beloved Dean of Faculty of Education, Yang Berbahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Norazam Mohammad Nordin, would like to share her insight on 4IR cross-culture learning.
Thank you, Shazwin. Wow, it's nice to hear the voice of my student. I know what's in their heart, but don't worry, we are working very hard to make sure that teaching and learning are really back into the position that it should be. However, of course, the whole world is facing the problem, and we'll try our best to make full use of the equipment, or to make full use of the situation, and to make sure that our students can optimize the teaching and learning experience. So the topic which is given to me, and I also enjoy talking about it, and I add some, the fourth industrial revolution flavor there, digital learning future plan in the fourth industrial revolution. So I would like to begin my presentation with the sharing of what is the United Nations is striving for, which is the Sustainable Development Goal. The whole world is struggling to achieve the 17, we call it SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, which by the year 2030, the whole world is hoped to achieve the excellence in all the 17 goals. They call it Sustainable Development Goal. So there are so many goals: no poverty, no hunger, good health. And what really matters for educationists or for students like us today is the quality education. So for the university, giving the quality educations to the student is our priority. So we are struggling together with the whole world, together with the United Nations, to give the best to our students. Okay, early 2020, we're having this COVID-19 pandemic, which everybody knows really give impact to education as a whole, impact to the teaching and learning. We can see that, the classroom is empty, all the students were sent back to their hometown, and actually the lecturers are so lonely without you students. Okay, so these are all unprecedented disruption to school, to universities, and to the learners too. And according to UNESCO, almost 300 million kids missing school because of the coronavirus. And also the world, the changing, the world changing trends, where we also facing the digital native, like everybody here in this webinar, you are all the millennials who are powerful generation in the making. You all are being born during the time of the digital revolution. You are growing up with perks such as the broadband, smartphone, and social network, which compared to me growing up in the 60s and 70s, we didn't have all these things. However, here I am also with the digital world, struggling, doing our best to make sure that we give quality education to our students. And also the challenging world is facing the issues of urbanization, where it is projected that by the year 2030, 2/3 of the world's population will reside in the cities. So all the villages will be quite empty, very quiet, and the number of megacities will be more than 10 million people expected to grow to over 40. And also the hyperconnectivity. People, whenever you are, you always ask, you don't ask the facilities, the physical facilities, but you always ask about, okay, how's the internet? Is there any Wi-Fi here? So that is the hyperconnectivity issue that we are facing. And also the rise of machines, where future productivity, robots become cheaper, faster, and efficient. And we see here in the modern houses, modern living, robots are cleaning the house. And also we use a lot of machines to take care of our work. And also we before this, maybe about 5 to 10 years ago, we are talking about green technology. Everything is green. But now we are talking about smartphone, smart TV, smart university, smart campus. Everything must be smart. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing. And also, we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. When I started doing research in this fourth industrial revolution issues, specifically in education, I was also wondering why the fourth. Nobody talked about the first, the second, and the third. Okay, let me show you the video how the revolution started. Okay, so that is how it started, how the revolution started. And it started, the first started with the steam engineering way back between 1760 to 1840. I was not born yet. Our great grandfather, grandmother, maybe they were alive, during their time, where we don't have electricity, everything using steam and all that. And after that, we have revolution, the second industrial revolution between 1830 and 1915. I still remember my late grandmother was born in 1916. So so this actually just passed the second industrial revolution, where we started with electricity, they had started invented motor car and all that. And after that, the third industrial revolution, 1969 to 2010, and about the internet, nuclear energy, and all that. And now we have started in the fourth industrial revolution, when we talk about all the digitalization. And of course, when we talk about digitalization here, about education, digitalization of education, and also digitalization of product and services, business, and all that. We talk about mobile devices, actually what you are holding now. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. We have the wearable, where you wear your smartwatch. When you wear it, it can read your heartbeat and all that, counting the calories and all that. Those is actually part of the technology for the fourth industrial revolution. And we talk about Internet of Things, we talk about nanotechnology, we talk about 3D printing, smart sensors, big data, and so on. We talk about augmented reality, cloud computing. So those are all the technology that everybody here, like you, our young generation, you have to deal with it, with how we integrate in education to be relevant to the industry. Okay, so when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, I would like to relate with the framework of education 4.0. Although this is for educators, however, I would like to share with you the skills that is needed. There are at least four main skills that everybody here must really venture into this, really master in this skill. You need to have global citizenship skill, which include the awareness about the wider world, sustainability, and active role in the global community. And I'm so proud that today's effort, today's webinar is really inculcating this skill, global citizenship. We have our international students here to be with us, with the global community. So this is actually how the university is inculcating this skill to the student. So well done. I would like to congratulate this webinar, really very suitable in inculcating this skill for global citizenship. Innovation and creativity skills, technology skills, and interpersonal skills. So these are all the, at least the four skills that you, the young generation, Gen Z, have to really master in. And what we are doing in the faculty, and I'm sure is also being implemented in other universities in other parts of the world, like Indonesia, the United States, Brunei Darussalam, and all that. We are the educators. They are practicing the personalized and self-paced learning, and how to educate the students using the inclusive learning and problem-based collaborative learning, and also the lifelong learning. So this is actually the framework for Education 4.0 that suits the fourth industrial revolution. I would like to share this data from the Future of Jobs Report 2020 by the World Economic Forum, that the type of skills, the problem-solving skills, self-management skill, working with people, technology use and development skill. There are at least four skill types that the students have to master in, and the online learning is part of the skills that you have to master. Actually, I look at the pandemic as uh, an innovation from the lecturers and from the students. Actually, you are practicing the technology usage, technology development in yourself. If prior to the pandemic, everything is, I think about 70%, you are dealing with face-to-face with the lecturers, face-to-face teaching and learning process. But now, during the pandemic, you have no choice that you have to master in technology. I'm so glad that the students just now really invest on the technology, buying the gadget, upgrading the computer, doing their best so that he enjoys teaching and learning. Actually, that is one of the ways forward to be excellent in the fourth industrial revolution. So it's just that you have to get used to it. And also, according to the data, the COVID-19 is pushing companies to scale remote work by 83%. So only 13% is in the workplace, 83% is at their house, or they are working remotely. So being online is actually a very good training for you here, for everybody here, to be ready for the for the working experience in the new era. To accelerate, and also the COVID-19 is pushing the companies to accelerate digitalization. So technology is here. You really have to master in it. Accelerate automation by 50%. Imagine that. And also, rate of automation by the year 2025, 53% only using human, 47% all using machine. So this is actually an indication that you really have to reskilling, retooling yourself so that you are relevant to the workplace today. And also, I would like to share the latest data. The latest data, that this data is 2020 from the World Economic Forum, and growing job demand about the data analysis scientists, artificial intelligence, big data, and so on, and decreasing job demand. So you can serve more after my presentation, so that although you are learning English, you are learning special education, doing mass communication, you have to fit in this with technology, because in order to have data about language, data about English, about teachers and all that, they need you to give it. So however, you need to know the technology. So this is how you can be relevant in this fourth industrial revolution. And also, according to the World Economic Forum, reskilling needs is 50%. So 50% of all employees will need to reskill by the year 2025. Let's say you are graduating this year and with lesser skill in technology. So You have to reskill yourself. Take the online classes. Study take any professional courses so that you are well equipped with all the skills needed by the companies out there. And reskilling needs by 40% of current workers. They are expected to change in the next 5 years. So we are not discussing about what's happening now. We are preparing for the next 5 to 10 years. So this is what's happening, and the problem that we are facing, the challenges. Are we all future ready? We do. Everybody, is everybody have the future ready mindset? Are we ready for this? Are all the educator 4.0 ready? Is the institution ready? Are we ready for the fourth industrial revolution? How about the skills? How about the transdisciplinary knowledge? How about the learning spaces that we are having now? And are we having the expert mobility, sufficient international exposure? So these are all the challenges that the university management and also the students, both parties, both entities, we are working towards excellence for this, to solve this problem. So, reimagining education, we have with the fourth industrial revolution, with the challenges during the pandemic and post-pandemic, we have to rethink about education, reimagining it. Focus on recovering post-pandemic. Are we recovering the existing system? But I think we also have the opportunity to build back a better situation and opportunity to reimagine our education system going forward. And so that everybody here, all our students, everybody here, students, you are relevant. We are developing, we are producing the relevant graduates. However, you yourself have to know how to be relevant, doing the reskilling, retooling, and also the students, the university management, we have to prepare the students for life, not just for examination. And also for them, where and how learning takes place. If prior to the pandemic, everything is happening in the campus, we are doing it in the lecture hall, in the classroom, on the field, in the lecture theater, and so on. But now we have to think where and how learning takes place. Virtually is one of the, the space that we are facing, and who is fundamentally involved in education, and how the technology can improve learning both inside and outside the classroom. So if you feel that you are still not comfortable with the online learning, please make it happen. Try to make yourself comfortable by keep on trying, interacting with the students who love the online learning. Come to the lecturers virtually if you want to solve, if you face any problem. And all the universities, I am very confident are practicing the digital technology and blended learning. When we talk about the future is really unpredictable. However, the future can be found in the past. From what our experiences, we can do the projection, and actually we can invent our own future. And there are actually from the educationist point of view, there are 4 concepts that are shaping the futuristic learning. which is andragogy, heutagogy, pedagogy, and cybergogy. And andragogy is about the teaching method that we use to teach the adult learners. Why? Because the adult learners, they have to do the reskilling, retooling, and so on. And from the educationist point of view, they need to know the method dealing with the adult learners. Heutagogy is how the students manage the teaching and learning process. Pedagogy, because the young generation, they love to be connected, they love to learn collaboratively, they love to be connected, and they love study in group. And cybergogy, where we use a lot of online material. So the future of learning and teaching, they have a big changes ahead for education actually. So this is, I adopt this from Microsoft. There are at least 6 global competencies that you have to master in. Critical thinking, you need to be very creative in order to be relevant in this new world, in the 4th industrial revolution. You need to have good communication skill, know how to sell your ideas, master in pitching, and do a lot of collaboration, global citizenship, and also character building. And personalized learning network is also the way forward for the students. And now what the universities are doing is, instead of learning to memorize facts, the student needs to learn how to learn, how to solve problems. Learn how to learn means you need to learn how to master each subject. And this involves educational innovation. And that is why when you read, when you explore from the internet, we do a lot of, we are developing the flexible education. What is it? So now school and universities need to expand and revise the curriculum in such a way that we have to educate ourselves for the digital future that is inclusive. Everybody deserves the education for sustainability, and we work collaboratively. And how? Just to share with you, you are students, but I would also like to share with you students what is the planning of the many institutions. Yesterday, I just have had meeting with the Asia Europe meeting for lifelong learning hub. Of educators from Asia and Europe, from Thailand, from India, from Indonesia, from the Philippines, from Spain, from Finland, and also from Czechoslovakia. We are talking about redesigning curriculum for lifelong learning. We talk about micro credential, about the micro degree courses, about the micro master program. What is micro credential? We are looking forward for more flexible learning, where the students, they don't come to universities for 4 years. Maybe after this, if you want to further your studies for master's degree or PhD while working, you can take credit by credit. Maybe this month you take 1 credit. So maybe a few more months you take 1 more credit, and after that 1 more. It depends on your own time, flexible learning, personalized learning environment, and after that you can accumulate all the credits to be converted into master's degree, bachelor or master's degree. So that's what is the future of the curriculum, yeah, redesigning curriculum. And this is really a technological future. And we talk about MOOC, about the massive online open courses. If you want to know more about MOOC, you can search for in the internet about the very famous MOOC provider, Coursera, open learning, and so on. There are very good massive online courses because it is so flexible. You can take it anytime, and it is flexible hours. When you register for MOOC, you meet the students from all over the world. And if we want me to talk about MOOC, it will take hours. I love to talk about it. But here I'm just going to introduce you about the MOOC. And if you're interested, please explore. And if you want to know further information about MOOC, just contact me directly. And if I have time, I would also like to share China's experience in dealing with COVID-19. We know that Wuhan is the place where it started, and why China recover this very fast. One of the ways they do it is how they support the online learning by developing at least 3 websites. The websites are called Keep Teaching for the lecturers, so that, you know, because it is so sudden, so unprecedented, that the lecturer has to turn everything into online. So they open this website for the lecturers to interact, to collaborate, and also keep learning. Special website for the students, and keep working. The website for the staff, for the support staff. So this is how China is dealing with it. So collaborating the unprecedented incident. So that's how they are doing it. And also in Italy, refocusing attention on e-learning and strategic importance of quality open access multimedia learning for public higher education sector. So dear students, listen to me. Online learning is one of the ways forward. One of the way, it's not the way forward. Okay, so deal with it, learn more, keep on learning. Please, if you don't like it, you have to do something to win your heart, because online learning is very important. The whole world is dealing with it, is innovating on the online learning. And also, this is where, okay, the University of Naples, Federico, using the MOOC, they are taking picking up the MOOCs that they have developed before, redesign it, and offer it to the students. So this is also open online learning. So really, technology is really transforming the education with the devices and so on. With the, you know, we are going into biometrics and gamification and futuristic technology to support the learning. And also, of course, this is also the challenge, one of the, you know, part of the challenges faced by all universities. We have to, all the lecturers, we have to master in it. And we know that specifically Faculty of Education, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, we have this Educator 4.0 group, you know, to support this system, the augmented reality, drone, 3D printing, and so on. And of course, we are using blended learning, you know, connectedness, collaboration, and co-creation are all aspects which are very important to practice the teaching and learning anywhere, anytime. And as I mentioned just now about the heutagogy, that is beyond pedagogy, where we are preparing for the student for their future to be lifelong learners. Where when we talk about heutagogy, we are talking about how students decide how to learn. We decide the objective, the aim, but the process will be decided by the student. We ask the student how they want to learn. So this is one of the pedagogy ahead, and we have to rethinking about education, rethinking about learning, a teaching culture. We have to convert a teaching culture to a learning culture. One-way communication, the students only learn when the lecturer is in front of them into the learning culture. The students have to learn how to learn, and teaching and learning go beyond classroom walls, and also people-driven learning, student-driven learning. Actually, you play a big role because doing it online. And at the same time, of course, one of the challenges, social and emotional well-being also have to be taken into consideration, because if everything is online, of course, the students said just now, they still love to be in campus with the friends and so on. Yeah, we do it hybrid. We pray that the pandemic will be over soon, and we can interact. We can do it hybrid, do it blended. So maybe 30%, 70% online, 30% we do face to face, and so on. So education actually does more to respond to the changing world, and the impact of the fourth industrial revolution really shifting the educational evidences. So it require curricular changes to enable learners and educators to be ready for the revolution. And also we have to be dealing with the learning, the space, which is the virtual space, and the technology. And we ask ourselves, are we ready for the paradigm shift? And let's shift the gear towards the futuristic education. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Norazam Muhammad Nordin, for the deep insights on the fourth industrial revolution earlier. It is a great honor for us to experience this revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly turn off your microphone to avoid any interruptions, and please turn on your video during this webinar session. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic need no introduction. It has impacted many sectors, not only the developing countries, but developed nation, as well as 186 countries across the globe is facing this challenge. At this time, approximately 1.7 billion children from primary, secondary, and tertiary level are affected by school closure as a part to contain the spread of COVID-19. On the other hand, COVID-19 has drastically changed the educational landscape for millions of university students around the world, and the international students have their own set of unique challenges. Many sudden changes along the chronic stairs of the pandemic may pose mental health challenges, particularly if students suffer pre-existing mental health issues. The impact has been dramatic, transformative as students, especially undergraduates, struggle to come up with a short-term solution for remote learning, especially in Asian countries, where students have to face additional challenges related to financing and availability infrastructure. The Ministry of Education around the world have deploying a wide mix of approaches to address education disruption, and at the same time to foster quality distance learning with concern to ensure equity and inclusive, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, leaving no one behind. On that note, this webinar session aims to exchange experience and opinions on how other university students are coping with online education and international scale, and also to connect with other students from various countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have 4 undergraduate panelists from a few countries to share their experience on having online learning during COVID-19 pandemic. They are from Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and the United States of America, USA. Before we dive deep into the session, it will be great if we have the speakers to introduce themselves. Let us begin with our first panel member, Mr. Alhakan Jazuli from University of UIN Araniri, Banda Aceh, Indonesia.
Hello everyone, my name is Salakan Jazuli and I am a alumni from KLES exchange student to the United States. I was hosted in Indianapolis in Franklin Central High School. Now currently I'm a student ambassador of Alia, which is an app for budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alhakan Jazuli, for the introduction just now. Next, the second panel member is Ms. Qureshi Nur Yakin, Aina Yakin from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Welcome, Ms. Qureshi. Can you give a brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
Right, thank you, Shazwin. Assalamualaikum, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be speaking with you today, together with other speakers. So before I start, before a brief introduction about myself, my name is Qureshi Nur Yakin. You can call me Qureshi. I live in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, studying in Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Currently in my final year of law school, and today might probably be my last webinar as a student. So a bit background for myself. I was the former Chief Executive for Pendeta Zakbar Student Executive Council, which is the residential college. And now I hold a position as a treasurer for the next UKM organization. So that's all from me.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi, for willing to spend time with us on today's webinar. Our third panel is Mr. Awang Muhammad Shamsul Bazli Bashrin from Universiti Brunei Darussalam, Brunei. Welcome, Mr. Bashrin, on today's webinar session. Can you give a brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
All right. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. My name is Muhammad Shamsul Bazli Bashrin bin Awang Haji Muhammad Shamsul Bahrain, and I just finished my second year from School of Business and Economics, majoring in Business Administration, and I'm heading to my third year now. And I was formerly the Vice President for the Student Associations and still active in a few executive, which is Executive of International Affairs and Student Ambassadors, Leadership in Innovations, and few other student bodies councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awang Shamsul Bazli Bashrim from the sharing. Our last panel is Ms. Marin Qureshi from University of Illinois Urbana, Champaign, Illinois, USA. Welcome, Ms. Qureshi. Can you give a brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
Assalamualaikum. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Mariam. I am from Illinois, from the US. I'm no longer an undergraduate. I graduated last week, alhamdulillah, with a degree in journalism. And inshallah, I am going to be a journalist, inshallah, writing, making documentaries, inshallah. I work with some Muslim organizations in Illinois, and that's always enjoyable. It's interesting. And yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
All right, thank you, Ms. Marin Qureshi, for willing to spend time with us on today's webinar. Thank you, and yes, that was a brief yet precise introduction from our speakers. Very well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the questions. The first question I would like to ask Mr. Jazuli from University of Araniri, Indonesia, and Ms. Qureshi from the National University of Malaysia is, what are the obstacles that might stand in the way of online learning?
Okay. Okay, I think I'm gonna take a shot from this question. Tech flyer as the disruption, I think, will be a very common thing for the future, and I'm sure that this has already shaped us in the way how we see the future. And at once, I've seen my father asked my young brother on how to operate the Gojek app. For your information, Gojek is ride-hailing app. Imagine like motor taxi, like Uber and Grab. From this digital gap ability, I can go with notion about teacher came from older generation and student came from younger generation. And this is the obstacle for us in this kind of situation. And teacher cannot operate the technology provided, will be left behind. It also happened to the both side, not just a student, not just a teacher. I mean, both student and teacher. And also the way I predict the future, I mean like this, the crisis has opened my eyes about how would I devise my bright future. I quickly like about, wait a minute, the old way have been gone through was not devising my future better. This new way does, or wait a minute, the old way does not require my workplace skill and for my career, but the one does. The other thing I'm sure about the technology is will be disrupted our curriculum administration. If we do not have an adjustment in order to adapt, our curriculum will be an obstacle also. That's from me, I think, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jazuli. How about Ms. Qureshi?
Yeah, I do agree with Ms. Hakan's opinion. And regarding this question, throughout this online learning, I have listed 3 points to answer about the main obstacle or challenges during this online learning. So the first one I found is the internet connection problem. We know that some of the students did not come from well-off families, and many households face financial constraints, especially during this pandemic with increase of unemployment rate. And in Malaysia, yes, Malaysia government do provide us the free 40 gig mobile data. However, it is not adequate to support heavy video streaming or lecture which exhaust data quickly. I'm very sure all the audience today are very familiar with how our online platform are consuming our data. And this puts the students of poor families at a disadvantages as they cannot afford to top up the data more frequently. And we have to know also that the internet speed and coverage are also different based on the student's budget and location. Therefore, some students who are reside in rural areas are expected to face challenges in securing their sufficient and good internet access. So that is the first one. Secondly is the digital divide. While occurring such devices may not be a problem for someone living in a well-off family, as previously for the internet connection problem, but during tough times, poorer families typically would prioritize putting food on the table over purchasing digital devices and getting access to the internet. And we have to know that the digital divide among the regions in Malaysia could also obstruct successful online transformation of education, which is the same issue faced by the Southeast ASEAN countries. Moreover, there is some of the students that due to all their laptops or their computers, they are facing difficulties during the online learning. For example, they have failed to log in their online platform, they cannot download and cannot upload their assignments and to run the Microsoft Teams or the Google Meet or Zoom in a single concurrent session with other necessary software due to the small memory. And finally, I found the among the most challenge or obstacle in line the online learning is the environment and understanding of the students. And we have to admit that the reality is quite different from the typically daily university routine. And the students as well as the lecturers are still grappling with our online learning. And we know that unconducive environments makes the adoption of home-based e-learning even harder for both lecturers and students. And with the disparity in financial resources among students, they do not have access to the environmental and equipment factors required for the smooth online learning. There are some of us that may have some situation at home that they can't focus during the online class, which leaves them at a disadvantage. So this is the 3 main obstacles so far as I experienced during this online learning, and I would like to hear more from other speakers. So back to you, Shazwin.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi. Thank you, Ms. Jazuli and Ms. Kushi, for the insightful perspective regarding the issue on obstacle of learning. I do agree on how technology and device digital as well as internet connections and environment as well as the students' understanding towards online learning actually influence students' learning outcome. And at the same time, students have to adapt with all of these in short period of time. All right. So moving on to Mr. Bashin from University Brunei Darussalam Brunei and Ms. Qureshi from University Illinois USA to share their experience on how stressful online learning for them during COVID-19 pandemic. My apologies if in case of Ms. Qureshi, how stressful online working during COVID-19 pandemic. Adding some tips to overcome the situation would be beneficial for all of us today.
All right. Thank you, Shazwan, for the questions. So I think this is the the short answers for questions that I will give. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has forced most universities all over the world for the transitions to distant learning from the traditional classroom. But in my opinion, it wasn't really that stressful for me, but it is something that I'm actually excited about initially. Hence, it doesn't actually really affect my overall learning process, especially amidst the pandemic. And moreover, we are in my university, we are now back to the physical lectures, and of course with some still using the online lectures, and hence it does not really stress me out. And again, it depends on the individuals and the universities themselves, because the adaptability towards this online learning, it depended on the individual themselves. And back to the questions, for myself, it doesn't really stress me out. So yeah, thank you.
And what about Ms. Qureshi about working environment during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Sure, thank you. And Mr. Bashrin, I'm glad to hear, alhamdulillah, you're not stressed. That's good to hear. That's a really interesting question. I think something that really made it, actually interestingly, it made it stressful for me that my professors were much more relaxed about deadlines. I don't know if this is the case in other countries where you all are from. I don't know if this has been your experience, but because the professors were aware that the students were struggling with, maybe family stuff going on, financial things, internet connectivity, technology, all of those things, they were, generous. They were a bit more lenient and relaxed with us in terms of deadlines. And funny enough, that actually made it more stressful, at least for me personally, because it gave me kind of false sense of, okay, I have more time to work on this. I can, put more effort into it. Or so that, I think that was something that was very interesting, and that I didn't expect that would somehow be a source of stress. Another thing was just not being able to see people as often. I think I'm a person, I really enjoy, like the video we had watched with the individual from the university. I love being around other people. I like meeting people, doing volunteering stuff, going, seeing new things. So it was difficult and stressful to be like, okay, I'm constrained in a different way. And alhamdulillah, like it's a new challenge. And I think it's important, like the professor had mentioned, for us to kind of realize like what we need, what is helpful for us to not feel stressed, how can we manage that stress. Also in the US, we've started, I had one class which was taking place in person last semester. And so I think it's important for us to reflect and think about how we can be less stressed, or at least deal with the stress that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bashrin and Ms. Qureshi. It is such an expected experience, and tips given were helpful from both of you. And I do agree how stress management actually came from the students themselves. before I move on to the next question, is there any panelists who would like to add on to the recent question? All right.
I think I'll add some points on that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I just want to give a brief story about the COVID-19 here in Brunei. So ever since the first COVID was founded in Brunei, which is I think last year, March 2020, and then Alhamdulillah, by the help with the government of the Ministry of Health and few other ministries, we are able to cope with this COVID situations with a few restrictions. And then the countries are able to actually combat the viruses. And that is why I mentioned earlier that we are now back with the physical learning, and we only have the online learning for, I think, for one semester only. Hence, it doesn't really have a strong challenges to me and other students, I think. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bashir. Alhamdulillah for Brunei, able to coping with the pandemic, and the students able to experience hybrid learning at the moment, I believe. Yes, congratulations. All right, moving on to the third question. The following question is to address to Mr. Jazuli and Ms. Qureshi on, is online education as effective as conventional education? In another word, face-to-face instructions. Maybe we can start with Mr. Jazuli.
Personally, I would agree with Mr. Bashran's statement before. This is a very general question, and it depends. It depends on personal. But I can ensure that the position of teacher could not and would not be disrupted or even be replaced by AI. Because teacher or mentor, I really believe they have such as ethic, duty, or empathy-based dimension. Like what Mr. Bashan said about, it depends on personal. But for me personally, I love learning online because you can get an international degree wherever you are. And like my example, I took the Florida University at Bachelor of Business Administration, and even though I would not go to United States, but I can get a degree online. So yeah, I would like to hear Miss Yakin. I really believe that. Really interesting. How about you?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hakan Jazuli. Yes, I do agree with Mr. Bashrin and Mr. Hakan's opinion regarding the adaptability rate of the students. It is depend on the individual itself, how they adapt to the online learning at the short period, and what's their rate of tolerance, how they can cope with the stressful environment during the online learning. And personally, for me as a law student, I in my opinion, there's some classes I'm okay with online learning. However, there are some classes or some subject I couldn't afford to learn it online, because in law school we have to practice our advocacy skill. So in order to practice our advocacy skill, it is not something that the teachers or the lecturers can assess by doing it online. They must saw us in front, they must talk and must see our gestures, and like what I'm doing right now. So this is very main thing to ensure that the universities are producing a good, a better advocacy of lawyers in future. So I think that's my opinion regarding this.
Shazwin?
Yes.
Okay. For this question, can I hear Miss Qureshi opinion, because she is a journalist, right? So journalists must be like in place during journalism.
Yeah,
So
I would love to hear that
yeah.
too.
Yes, agree. I believe Ms. Qureshi have tons to say about this.
Sure, sure. Thank you for the question. Definitely. Actually, I was in a TV production in fall, and we needed to be there. We needed to be, in front of the camera. We needed to be talking. We tried to do social distancing, but it was difficult because we needed to be setting up the cameras, setting up the tripod, clipping the microphone, everything. So that was difficult. And I definitely agree that it's not a replacement because of the role of the teachers. I think it's so like what Mr. Jezuli, is that what it is? Okay, there is no, a computer or a robot will never be able to replace, because there's just, I think especially the understanding of a professor or their, a really good teacher is able to look at the student, at what struggles they're having, at what strengths they have, and adapt and encourage them in a way that will help that student particularly, that might not be the best way for another student. So I think that's something that, interestingly enough, virtual learning taught me, that like the importance of actually having a teacher to teach.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi. Mr. Bashrin, would you like to add on to this question?
Yes, please. All right. So again, I agree with Kushinor and Mariam, which is, I think it depends on the course of faculty themselves, which is some faculties may require a face-to-face learning in order to, to get more effective learning. So I think we all know that online learning is now increasingly popular nowadays, right? And this trend is here to stay ever since the outbreak of COVID-19. And with more flexibility, self-directed study options, and access to the same instructors and teachers as traditional learning, it is not a surprise that online learning is popular nowadays. But is online learning as good as face-to-face learning? It may be, and it may even be more effective in some cases. And it's depending on depending on the individual themselves, and depending on the different faculties and courses that the students may have, and how the lectures themselves can actually turn the online learning to be as interactive as possible. So online learning is asynchronous, as students do not have to learn at the same time and place as the instructors are teaching, where face-to-face learning is the more of the traditional way of instructions, where student and teachers attend an in-person session at the same time, and the instructors lead the class, and usually students are passively learning for the traditional style of learning. I think few reasons on how online learning can be more effective is that the first thing is student can actually learn more, in my opinion, where online courses give us the full control on what we are learning. So we are able to work at our own speed, and we are able to work quickly through areas that we do not understand, and spend more time on the areas that we do not understand. And then the second thing is that lower time investment, which I think in online courses, we save ton of time by not having a commute to class. And there is also a need by face-to-face instructors to fill the allotted course time, when students could be using that time to work on something more valuable for our learning. And moreover, that in online learning as well, we are spending less time overall and making that time towards our education count. I think that's just my opinion. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bashrin. Thank you for all of our panelists. Your opinion were tremendous. Thank you for the detailed information on the question earlier. If I may say, I agree with how Ms. Qureshi stated that technology can't replace educators. And in an educator's perspective, it is clear that in education, human needs humans touch. Without humans touch, education can't be perceived. And like Mr. Bashrin said earlier, that online education enables students to develop their self-learning, and they have the opportunity to explore their education within themselves, as well as Ms. Kushi and Mr. Jazuli mentioned earlier, that online education helps them to prepare themselves for the online real world out there. All right, the next question, I would like to focus on how many hours have Ms. Kushi and Mr. Bashrin spent during online learning. Does online learning disrupt your daily routine at home? We will start with Ms. Kushi.
Yeah,
How
thank you,
about
Shazwin, for, is it me? Okay. Thank you, Shazin, for that interesting question. So for me, the longest hours I spend for online learning is around 12 hours, plus minus I rest, I eat, and I go to prayers. But actually, this doesn't really disrupt my daily routine at home. This is because, for example, I already know what lecture or tutorial or class that I will be having for tomorrow. So when I wake up in the morning, I will do my routine as usual and attend the online class right after get it done. So, but there is certain um, time that we students have to have all of the deadlines, all the midterms, exam or quiz at that one particular week. But and that during that time, my daily routine is slightly disrupted as I spend more time with my laptops to revise and finish the assignment given. So it depends lah. It depends on the schedule itself lah for me. How about you, Ashwin?
Yes, I think I agree with Kushina as well. So again, as of now, the after the escalations of, I think it's now level 5 in Brunei, where mass gatherings are now allowed up to 1,000 pax, as I mentioned earlier. And I think um, we are now back with the physical lectures, right? So although that they are still online lectures, because of our uni is now practicing both blended learning, both physical and online learning. And back to the questions, when we were asked to stay at home previously doing an online learning at most of the time after the first COVID was announced, the schedule was set, actually was set the same as the normal timetable scheduling. Hence, it does not really disrupt my daily routine at home. It's just that the method of I'm doing the classroom, the class is much more relaxed than in the classroom. And again, it does not really affect my daily routine, and it stays the same as the normal timetable scheduling as our physical lectures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khushi and Mr. Bashrin. Ms. Qureshi, would you like to add on to that? How does online learning disrupt your daily routine at home?
Sure. I think that's a really interesting question. Definitely at home, it's interesting. I live with my family, so if they need something, sometimes they're not aware that, okay, I'm in a class or there's something going on, there's a meeting. So it can be a bit chaotic. And it's also interesting. I'm taking a class which is, the educational center is in another country, and I have friends from the University of Illinois. After, we have a winter break, like at the end of December, January, they went back to their home country. So I have a friend in the UAE who is taking courses in US time, and had like that, that really messes with your schedule. We have a lot of international students at the University of Illinois. We have a lot of Malaysian students as well. So that's a really interesting thing, that because of technology, you're able to, like brother or Mr. Jazuli was saying, like you're able to attend in a different country. You can get an international education, but sometimes if that has to be at the same time, that can really mess with I don't know, with your daily schedule. I have a class right now, which is from, it's not that early, but it's 6:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., 5 days a week. So that's challenging, but I guess you adapt, you learn to adapt.
Yes, I do agree with you. And some of the undergraduate students might have difficulties as they have other commitments at home if they're living with their families. And it's true how Ms. Kushi and Mr. Bashrin stated that it all depends on the students how they manage their time. But unfortunately, I'm really sorry for your friend, Ms. Qureshi. She has to go through the different time zone for online classes. It might be disrupted for her as well. I believe we got disconnected with Mr. Jazuli. Maybe there's an internet connection. It's all right. We can wait for him to return back inside. For the fifth questions, I actually would like to ask Mr. Jazuli on behalf of this, but maybe other panelists could add on before Mr. Jazuli able to register back in. We will proceed with Mr. Bashrin. How do you cope with online learning during the COVID pandemic last year after quite some time? Do you have any suggestions to make online learning experience better?
All right. So thank you again for the questions, Shazwin. And so I think there are actually many ways on how we can actually stay motivated during the pandemic and to keep consistencies in our learning. In my opinions, for the first point is that to set a small daily goals, which is it is important to recognize that during this pandemic are normal times, and probably that our productivity is not as its peak right now, and I think that's okay, that's fine. By setting up a daily goals can actually help us to make our day as productive as possible, and of course to be realistic with the goals itself that we are setting off, because big goals may seem inseparable right now. Instead, to just actually focus on small goals for each day that we can cross off the list. And secondly is grinding out the time in our day for work and for relaxations, which is to get a better work-life balance. Working from home or learning from home can make it much harder to get through our daily tasks when the temptations of, for example, YouTube, TikTok, Netflix is quite literally in front of us, 24/7. Even for some people, working from home can actually lead to a serious case of overworking now that we are no longer dependent on school and office to restrict our school and working hours. Hence, by scheduling our time, when is the right time to work and when is the time to relax, can actually help us to manage a healthy work life balance at home, and most importantly is that we can dedicate a chunk of our day to work and keep our work out of our relaxation time. And then thirdly is which is the most important, I think, nowadays, is to prioritize our mental health, which is staying motivated can be near impossible when your mind is filled with fear, anxieties, etc. Nothing is going to keep us motivated when stress is unmanageable. And I think there is a lot to be stressed about, especially during this pandemic, shifting from traditional to online learning. Hence, taking care of ourselves can help us to better manage our mental health, especially during this time. Taking time to eat balanced meals, I think, is important as well. And try not to work through lunch. Step away from our laptop and take a lunch break or few breaks. And of course, don't stay up until late, 2 a.m. in the morning, example. And maintain a normal sleep schedule is important as well. And aim to get at least 8 hours of sleep at night and allow ourselves time to enjoy social media again and watching televisions. And the last one is scheduling a virtual get together with our friends, because I understand, for example, in US and Malaysia, which is, I think, you guys are now moving to PKP, right? Yeah. So social distancing can be hardest aspect of this pandemic for many people all around the world. So not getting to spend time with friends can actually be emotionally taxing. However, social distancing does not mean that we totally say goodbye to our social life. So schedule a virtual get together with our friends and have them often. And the promise of set time and that to get together can be an interesting things to do, especially during this pandemic. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bashrin. Ms. Qureshi, would you like to have an opinion on how do you cope with online learning?
I think what Mr. Bashran, thank you so much. I think it's really important what you said, to stay in touch with friends and to have another source of support. Definitely your family, it's important to be close to your family, to try to rely on them, but definitely because I think friends are going through something similar, especially for students. It's different than, what your parents are going through. Your parents or your other older relatives, they're experiencing the pandemic in a different way. You're experiencing it in a different way, especially in the context of being a student. So I think that that's a really good tip that I think sometimes with all of the focus on specifically on school and education and time management and all of that, you can forget that, okay, I'm a human being, that I have social needs. I will benefit. Maybe not, it's not always like clear, but it helps, like it helps you feel better, like just to talk to someone, I have one really good friend who really helped me, even in terms of if I was falling behind on assignments or struggling with something, she would, check in on me a lot. She would even, at the end of the day, she would message me, did you do your, like Mr. Bashrain was saying, did you do the goal that you had set for yourself today? So it's sometimes it's difficult to ask for that kind of help, to admit like, yeah, I'm struggling with something, but it really, it's really important to seek out that help and be proactive.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi. Ms. Qureshi, do you have any Malaysian context on how you were able to cope with online learning?
Yeah, actually, I really agree with the comprehensive answers given by Mr. Bashrin and Ms. Qureshi regarding this question. Um, I will give my personal opinion lah about how do I cope with the online learning. It's quite similar as explained previously, that I was always be prepared a day before. You have to get yourself organized in order for you to ensure you have a good online learning and you have a good rest during the online learning is going. You need to sleep early, keep yourself dehydrated. If you know that on the day your schedule for class is full during the day, from the day until the night, you must be prepared. At least you must have water beside you. If you feel sleepy, go make some stretching, get some tidbits to eat during the class if the lecture is allowed to do so. And the main thing is, if I did not understand or miss any part of the class, I will always find time to replay the recording to understand better. These are the good things actually where in online learning, where some lecturers during face-to-face class, they are not they didn't share their slides to the students because they want the students to keep focused during their lecture. However, when the pandemic come and the online learning started, the lecturers are being understanding to the students, and they're being lenient, and we students, we should appreciate that opportunity and take our time to learn and to replay the recording and to understand better in the online learning. So that's from me. Back to you, Shazin.
Thank you, Ms. Kushi. I actually agree on how Mr. Bashir and Ms. Qureshi stated that we need to keep in touch with our friends, even though we are social distancing. And as well as in Faculty of Education, the student committee, known as Pendidik, always have this daily motivation on our social media platform to ensure that all of the undergraduate students are in a good condition during this online learning. And how Ms. Kushi stated that we are able to rewatch the recording actually reminds me on how Hermione Granger went back to have a learning during Hogwarts School. We have Mr. Jazuli back online. Mr. Jazuli, we were waiting for you.
Sorry, this is the thing, man. This is the problem.
It's all right. Technical problems always happen. So, Mr. Jazuli, actually, we are discussing on how do you cope with online learning after quite some time. Do you have any suggestions on how to make online learning experience better?
I do have a sticky note here. So I wall and then gather account. Really, really crucial in this day. When
Mr. Jazuli, I believe you're breaking out again.
Hello?
All
Hey?
right.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Mr. Jazuli,
Yo.
unfortunately, I can't hear your voice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we could give some time for Mr. Jazuli to get back on track, and we will ask the same questions for Mr. Jazuli's perceptions regarding coping with online learning. Diving to the next question for our two lovely panelists today, Ms. Qureshi and Ms. Kushi, in terms of academic performance evaluation, which of these online examination or conventional examination provide the best experience? Adding to that, on a scale of 1 to 5, how assured are you to the validity and reliability of online examination? Maybe we can start with Ms. Qureshi.
You did say Qureshi, right? Sorry, I think I keep I keep getting confused. Okay, sorry, no worries. Okay, online examinations. Actually, in my course of study, we don't have so many examinations because we mostly have projects like where we're putting together video or we're doing articles. But I have taken some examinations recently. I'm doing an Arabic class, so we have midterm, we have weekly exams, but I think it's not the same, even if in terms of testing your understanding, because I mean, not me, but I think other students, you can find a way to get around, whatever limitations there are in place. The University of Illinois uses some kind of software. I'm not familiar because I haven't had to take intense exams like that where you're being monitored, where they've done something to your computer so that you're not able to access other sites. I definitely think they're trying. We had a Quran competition at our masjid. I'm not sure how they verified that the students were, not looking at something. I guess just trusting them. But I think it's definitely it's interesting in that it makes for an educator, it's like how can we test the students' understanding, knowing that maybe they have access to something else? Like, should we test something other than just factual recall? So that's I think it's interesting. And you had another part of the question about from 1 to 5. Sorry.
Oh yes, yes. From 1 to 5, how assured are you on the validity and reliability of online examination?
From 1 to 5, I would say 2.5. I'm not sure, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi. What about you, Ms. Kushi, for your faculty of law? What do you think about the online examination?
Yeah, thank you, Shazin. So, in my opinion, I think that when the online examination and physical examination is completely different. It's completely different. When are doing online examination, it's like it is an open book test. So when an open book test is being conducted, the lecturers are giving a, a very hard question to us. So when me myself, I doing that exam online. I'm facing I type on my laptop the answers. I took around almost 50 minutes to understand what is the question is talking about. So I think that the good side of this thing of the online examination is the university is not producing a exam based student. If we are in our physical examination, we tend to just memorize everything. As for law school, I need to memorize cases, I need to memorize the statutes, also the articles written by the authors. However, when I encounter this online examination, I the question is really testing my understanding about what I am learning, and I'm not keen to understand. I not practicing memorizing the cases, but I more understand what I am going to write inside my answer for the online learning. So for me, the scale I would give for online examination is maybe 3 out of 5, because during the examination, yes, the lecturers are giving us extra time, extension of time if we have some internet problem. However, back to my point previously, we are searching where are the right and the exact answer for that kind of question. So the thing that's for me, it's quite hard for me to answer my examination. But Alhamdulillah, I managed to end it before the time ends. So that's from me. Back to you, Shaz. Maybe Mr. Bashrin can add
Yes,
some
I
more.
believe Mr. Bashrin have some experience to share during the online examination.
Yeah, right. So thank you again for the questions. Okay, talking about the assessments here in UBD Brunei Darussalam, I think during the first semester where we are doing the fully online learning, most of the courses are changed to 100% coursework, which is no examinations. But I think there's still few online examinations, but I think it's called online book test, as what Kushiner mentioned earlier. And I think I have the same case as what Kushiner faced before, which is the exam that was supposed to be 2 hours physical exam. It was changed to, I think mine was 6 to 7 hours online book test. So I think that can be one of the challenges for us the student, because the lecturers tend to change up the questions to something difficult, which require us more time to actually answer the questions. And however, Alhamdulillah, ever since the escalations, we are now back with physical examinations. And just this semester, before I ended this semester, we had our physical examinations at the examinations hall as normal. And talking about the reliability scaling of 1 to 5, I think I would say it would be 2 out of 5, because like online learning, student get, I think not only me but few other students, although it called online examinations, I think students tend to referring back to the for example Google or somewhere, not because yeah, I think that's why I would say it's 2 out of 5, because it doesn't really reliable for students to have online examinations. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I do agree on how Ms. Qureshi and Ms. Kushi and Mr. Bashir add on to this online examination depends on the students themselves, whether they are being honest or they need some other references. But I do believe online examination provides some interesting platforms such as quizzes or Kahoot that could interact students with other students as well during their online examination. However, I'm quite surprised with Mr. Bashrin, as he stated that his online examination took 6 to 7 hours. Is that right? Oh my,
Yeah,
that is really long.
but it's an open book test. They changed the online examinations to an open book test. That's why.
Ah, I see. So so the questions are constant, but the time given are long enough.
Yeah, but it was changed to a more difficult question, so
Well,
that's why.
you must be glad to have the conventional learning for the moment right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for the insightful perspective given to us today. It sure has shifted our mind regarding the method. I would like to ask Mr. Bashrin and Ms. Qureshi opinion on how does online learning give you more authority on your learning style? Do you have a current assessment suits your preference as being evaluated by your respective lecturers? We can start with Mr. Bashrin.
Sorry, Shazin, can you repeat the questions, please? Thank you.
My apologies. Um, on your opinion, does online learning give you more authority on your learning style? Do you think your current assessment suits your preference as being evaluated by your respective lecturers?
All right. Okay. Yeah. Um. Okay. Wait. I can actually hear the question. Yeah. Okay. I think, in my opinion, yes, it does give me an authority, which is the freedom for me to actually do my own learning pace, especially during the online learning. And I think during the online learning time when I was doing it, and it gives me more free time to actually to do a learning time at my own preferably time and place. Hence, it does really give me a freedom to pick wherever I want to get the online learning. And in addition to that, few of my courses lecturers did pre-recorded lectures, and hence that's when I can actually watch wherever and whenever I want for the lectures. And moving on to the second questions, which is, I think you mentioned, do you think our current assessments suit the preferences? I think yes, I think because my style is to actually preferring 100% coursework, because it gives me more time to analyze my all my assignments, doing it with my friends and all. Hence, it does really actually suit my assessment in terms of giving in terms of lectures giving the marks, because we tend to have the free time to create our own points in for example, in a group work sessions, where we have the free time to actually discuss it with my friends and all. Hence, it is much more preferable to have such this assessment in compared to having an examination, in my opinion. So yeah.
What about you, Ms. Qureshi? What do you think towards this method?
I do think it gives you, online learning gives you a bit more authority over your learning style, and I think it also makes you more aware of your learning style, because you're like, you need to find a way to do your coursework and to finish your assignments, do well in your assessments, everything. And so in a situation where you're more isolated from other people, I think, for me personally, at least, it gave me time to reflect on what is the way that I can ensure that I'm going to succeed in my coursework. What are the things that I need? What are the things that work well for me and that don't work well for me? So that, I think that's one way that I see it. And the other part of the question, I think the lectures, at least the ones that I had coursework with, I think they varied a bit in terms of what they were using as assessments. And I think they changed it up a bit in order to kind of deal with the difficulties of online learning. And so that's something interesting, I think.
Thank you, Ms. Qureshi and Mr. Bashrin. And yes, if I may add, here in Faculty of Education, our lecturers have remodeled our assessment to ensure that we have the full grasp of our education. And welcome back, Mr. Jazuli. We miss you. Uh, just now, I asked you about how do you cope with online learning after quite some time, and do you have suggestions on how to make online learning experience better?
Uh, I believe that the other panelists would add some extra credit on behalf of me missing being gone. Okay, I do have sticky note and just stick on my wall, so it keeps me updated and it keeps me help my day and just structure my what kind of tasks am I doing right now, and also gather my account. So the case of like, wait a minute, what is my student email password? Wait a minute, what is my Google Classroom password? So it won't happen. So just gather your account on something like sticky note or notebook, it will help. I think that's all for me.
I agree with you, Mr. Jazuli, how that small piece of letter could help us throughout our online learning. Just now, our panelists discussed on online examination and conventional examination, and which are the best experience, and most of them given around 2.5 to 3 about the reliability and validity of online examination. And we agreed how this online examination depends on the students' honesty. And what do you think about that, Mr. Jazuli? Do you think that online examination or conventional examination provide the best experience for undergraduate students?
I would say that transparency is a problem. Transparency is a problem because when you are in the examination, you have to be real, like in time and real place. That's what help you assess your ability on something and how do you understand on something. But during this kind of situation, the solution was not come up yet, and I don't know how we cope this kind of problem. But like Mr. Bashrin said, because I was hearing before, we do have a lot of time to do our examination, so it's not real time and real place.
So the vibe of
Yeah.
traditional examination isn't there, and we have to cope this in a really short period of time. Yes, I do believe in that. And just now, Ms. Qureshi ended her perspective on the authority of online learning. However, I would like to hear from Ms. Kushi her experience on her online learning.
Thank you, Shazwin. Is it do you mean the on my is it about the authority of my learning style?
Yes, the authority of your learning style during online learning, and
Alright.
how the current assessment suits your preference as being evaluated by your respective lecturers.
All right, thank you. So during my online courses, I spend more time on reading lots of books, refer status, also writing an article. And I found that within the online learning, I actually improved my learning style a lot. While making my research for any subject, I slowly mastering my research skill using the database. Previously, I was not really familiar how to use the database correctly, the best way. But since the online learning started, I keep using that database until I master already how to use that database, how to do a better and quality essay. And for me, actually, this are helping me to know what is actually my learning style. And I also can continue practice my learning style even during the online learning. By right, I can refer to the lecture recording to complete my notes. You know, even today, I still write my notes handwriting. I still write my notes in my book notes during the lecture because I not familiar with typing the notes on the screen on the Microsoft Word, because I don't feel that, you know, when the lecturers are talking, you are quickly you take you grab what she or he is talking, and you quickly wrote on your notebooks. So when I found that my notes are incomplete, I always find time to rewind, to replay the recording to complete my notes, which actually is a good thing. So for me, I think that I have more authority in assessing in my learning style during the online learning.
Thank you, Ms. Kushi. How about you, Mr. Jazuli? How do you authorize your learning style during this online pandemic?
Uh, there is so much more momentum for me to know myself, what kind of style suits me a lot and the most. And there are a lot of various tools I can ensure that support me and support my study during this kind of situation, during this pandemic and distant learning. Uh, I would agree with Miss Yakin from Malaysia that uh, this momentum feels like, this is my vibe, this is my time to learn something new, to devise my future. And because the old way, I guarantee, does not devising my future, but the one does. So because the workplace will be changing, the future will be constantly and rapidly changing and growing, and the old way does not guarantee it.
Yes, I agree with that. However, some of the undergraduates who have a kinesthetic learning style might experience difficulties during this online learning because they're unable to move around. They're unable to experience the education themselves. Very well, ladies and gentlemen, and my respectful panelists, we are at our last question for today's international webinar. And I believe Ms. Kushi and Mr. Jazuli have a perception on online learning takes up more energy and more time than conventional learning. Do you agree, Ms. Kushi?
Yeah, I do agree. And actually, when uh, we not physically exhausted, but we are mentally exhausted during this online class.
And what about you, Mr. Jazuli? What do you think about online learning takes up more energy than conventional learning?
Yeah, I agree with your statement, Miss Yakin, because uh, we're exhausted mentally, not physically. But however, just try to be screenless. Just trying to be screenless and just like doing something real physically. Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you. Maybe Ms. Qureshi and Mr. Bashir would like to have an understanding upon this energy taken from online learning.
Um, I'll go first, Maya. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you for the questions again. I think again, as I said earlier, that it depends on the individual themselves. But for me, talking about does it really actually affect my energy and time? And for in terms of the energy, not really, because I have the free time to do my work everywhere and whenever I want. Hence, it does really give me freedom to do my learning process for the home-based learning. And in terms of time, maybe it does really affect my time because the lectures are tend to give us more assignments, more assessments, hence in compared to conventional learning, because I think lectures they know that students actually have more free time compared to conventional learning. Hence, that's why they are giving students more assignments, which actually that affect the students themselves. However, that's from the student perspective. In terms of the lecturer's perspective, I think it is the lecturer tends to get more energy and more of the energy and time because they have to create a more, for example, the Kahoot, the presentation slide, the pre-recorded slides. I think that's on their sites because. But in terms of other students, we are just getting the pre-recorded and learn it through online. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bashir. Ms. Qureshi, would you like to have some add-ons to that?
Yes, thank you. I think the energy level is an interesting question, especially, physically, like our physical energy from sitting, all day hunched over the keyboard, your back, your shoulders, your neck. Like it's so important because before, you used to go from place to place, you would have to walk to a building. You could, walk a good amount in a day. And now you don't you're not able to, or you don't have to, and you also, you're absorbed in the time that you're spending on the computer because your work, your school, your socializing, everything is happening over a screen. So I think it's so important for energy and for health to make sure that you are making that time for some kind of physical activity, even in the home. There's all kinds of YouTube videos for yoga, for aerobics, for different things. So I think that's one really important aspect. And I really appreciate, thank you everyone else for your comments and the tips, and I really learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you to Ms. Qureshi. And I believe that here in UKM have scheduled our learning. However, our self-learning might take some time when we ourselves as a student have the desire to explore more, and that is when we take up our daily routine. Well, thank you very much for all the panelists for the insignificant perspective, and thank you very much. However, ladies and gentlemen, our committee will be sharing an e-certificate shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, I would like to share this video with all of you.
Hai, Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saya Flower merupakan pelajar tahun 2 Sarjana Muda Sains Citra di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia kampus Bani. Okey, satu pengalaman yang saya takkan lupa dalam pembelajaran secara bawah talian adalah awal dulu saya dapat rezeki jaga atuk saya sakit. Itu satu benda yang saya sangat bersyukur bila jadinya pembelajaran secara bawah talian ni, kerana saya dapat luangkan masa dengan atuk sambil jaga dan ada dalam kelas secara dalam online kan. And then time belajar tu kat kampung biasalah akan ada bunyi macam-macam yang pelik-pelik. Jadinya time tu saya kena buat video assignment. Apa yang jadi time tu adalah time video tu lah akan ada bunyi ayam lah, bunyi kukuk-kukuk. Lepas tu bunyi itik, bunyi lembu. Saya jadi macam, dia orang ni kan macam tu tau. Boleh tak betul. Okay, cabaran yang jadi kat saya adalah biasalah, saya rasa semua orang akan lalui benda ni. Kelas pukul 8 and then masih lagi atas katil. Saya tak suka benda tu. Saya banyak terlepas time tu. Saya lepas daripada semester 1 sampai daripada minggu pertama sampai minggu 8. Banyak benda yang terlepas. Lepas tu saya rasa geram dengan diri saya. Kelas pukul 8 tapi tak masuk kelas. Buka kelas tapi masih tertidur. Lepas bangun kejap tidur. Saya tak suka benda tu. Jadi macam mana saya atasi cabaran itu? Naik je mid-sem break, saya telah tetapkan diri saya dekat kampus, yang tu dah masuk kampus. Kelas pukul 8 pagi saya akan pergi turun kafe dan saya akan belajar kat situ. Ataupun saya akan duduk dekat bawah pokok ke, saya akan dapatkan refreshment lah dari situ. Saya takkan buatkan diri saya terperuk je dalam bilik. Mana saya lagi suka? Adakah kelas online ataupun secara depan-depan? Saya seorang extrovert. Semestinya kelas secara berdepan-depan. Saya rasa macam terkurung duduk dalam bilik, dalam rumah. Saya tak suka. Jadi saya lagi suka kelas depan-depan sebab saya dapat jumpa lecturer yang tak perlu nak WhatsApp banyak kali. Tanya macam mana assignment ni, macam mana assignment tu. Kalau kat kelas boleh tanya terus kat depan tu, tanya. And saya dapat jumpa kawan-kawan of course. And then saya suka setiap perjalanan saya pergi kelas tu, saya akan dapat banyak benda baru. Banyak pengalaman. Kalau duduk rumah je, pengalaman TV, makan. So, itu saja daripada Flower. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Bye-bye.
Next, I would like to open a question and answer session to the audience if there are any questions to inquire. Our supportive audience may ask the panel today. Very well. I believe it's too early in the morning for the audience to ask questions. My apologies to that, but however, they have a Google link for them to fill in some questions. Maybe we can ask later on after the webinar session. Next, we will move on to the quiz session based on what we have discussed earlier. For the audience information, the quiz will be conducted within 4 minutes only. We are advising participations from the audience to enter their Zoom name for the quiz session. Let's begin.
Can we join the quiz?
Yes, the quiz is open for everyone. The more the merrier. I believe they have inserted a Kahoot link in the chat box. The audience and the panelists may check through the chat box. Thank you.
So there's no music playing or
My apologies, but I believe that the technical team might have problem with that. But it's great to have some encouraged audience to join for today's quiz. announcing the winner of today's quiz, Ahmad Shukri, UF, and 3. Congratulations to everyone for participating as it was an enjoyable quiz. Attention to top 3 winners. Attention to top 3 winners. Please reach out to any Benedict committee to claim your rewards. Ladies and gentlemen, we are towards the end of the session, and definitely I'm not going to summarize or conclude what we have discussed, partly because I believe that there is no conclusion regarding these issues. It is the beginning of the whole perspective. COVID-19 has reshaped education, and we are experiencing a steep learning curve outside. And based on the discussion, I think we have accomplished something with a digital education that would have taken 4 years. Let us thank you. Let us together thank the role of panelists that have given their precious time and tremendous input on how their experience on having online learning during COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you from bottom of our heart to the entire panelists for the opportunity time given, and we have no words to say thank you for the sharing. Not to forget to each and everyone who has participated in today's webinar, thank you very much for your active participation throughout the program. We hope you enjoy all of the session today and of course, gain something new from them that may benefit your online education endeavor. Before signing off, let us take a photo together for a moment. All participants were asked to turn on their cameras. I am Shazwin Farugazi. As your moderator today, would like to apologize for the inconvenience and shortcoming in conducting today's webinar. Thank you again, stay safe, and Assalamualaikum. All participants were asked to turn on their cameras to have a memorable photo on today's webinar. Thank you.
Okay, everyone ready? I'm going to take a picture. Okay, first slide. Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next. 1, 2, 3, smile. Then smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you moderator, thank you technical, Puan Nur Fadilah. Thank you speakers, thank you participant.
Thank you, everyone.